Like a very fun, homey experience for me since I feel at home. Qualify for the heritage Spanish component, although I did do my elementary and high school in Puerto Rico where it was Spanish. Um, I completely quit using Spanish the moment I moved to the States. I did all my college, medical training, everything in English. And so it has taken an effort on my part to go back and since I relearn how to communicate in Spanish for technical purposes, educational purposes, and others. So I tell the students, I'm learning with you in this class. So, and my whole instructor, she's responsible for making sure that I say things correctly in the class. And God, she hasn't interrupted me yet once. So a couple times I had to stop and say, wait, how would I say that in Spanish? And the nice thing is that that's welcome. And so the students do the same thing, and I do the same thing, and she helps us out, and so we're all learning in that environment. Um, so that's fun. So those are the students and the children now I'm caring for. So there's 48 of them. I thought we were gonna have 4 to 8 of them, and then this room is big, and there's like 48 students, so it's a big class. But it's fun. They're interested. They're excited. We're having discussions. And so I'm using the presentations I've used here for the last 7 years coming to this program and presenting to you. I'm pulling them out and interpreting them in Spanish and delivering them in Spanish. So in a way, I've workshopped a lot of the material in the class here already. So you will see, if you, I don't know if you'll notice, but you will see a couple of slides I've shown before here. But I thought since I'm in the professoral mode now in this quarter, I figure I'll put some slides together and bring something. So I know we said a Q&A. I only have 4 slides. You could talk for 6 hours about them, or we can talk for 20 minutes about them and then do the Q&A. So whatever you want. When you heard enough about this, I'll quit and then we can do the Q&A. Or as long as we're interested and excited about this, we can keep talking about it. Totally flexible. No preconceived obligation that we need to get through anything. So I do notice also a couple of new faces. So just in general, what I have been doing, and I apologize because it's been really patchy my coming in the last 6 to 8 months because of so many scheduled challenges. But what I was doing the last few years was I would pick something from the news or something that's been on the news interesting lately in health and try to bring that up and have a discussion about it. So that's kind of what I have been doing. So this is actually a continuation on that. And so I asked my wife, who is my advisor in many ways, and I said to her, hey, what have you seen on the news lately that you think is of impact or importance in terms of health and whatnot? And she said, absolutely, I think we need to know about this. And so this is the paper that she told me, this is what she's thinking about when she thinks about health and for the future. So this paper just came out maybe about a month or two ago. It's from the American Heart Association. And what they're doing is they're predicting what's going to happen to women in the next 30 years in terms of cardiovascular wellness and health. So this is specific for women. Okay. I'll remind those women is half of us. So it's a large portion of who we are. So forecasting the burden of cardiovascular disease and stroke in women in the United States to 2050, a scientific statement from the American Heart Association. So what they did is a forecast. It's just like the weatherman or the weatherwoman standing in front of saying, it's going to rain, by midnight. Okay, they're telling us what's going to happen. They have mathematical models that can, based on the data and the experience they have collected, they generated these mathematical models, and they can tell us at what time it's going to rain. And I can tell you in Davis, at least, it's very accurate. They say it's going to rain at 9 p.m. At 9 p.m., I can start hearing the water coming down. Okay, so this forecasting is usually pretty accurate. So what they're doing is they're trying to forecast based on the framework of the American Heart Association, looking at the behaviors, the healthy behaviors, and the metrics that the American Heart Association has been promoting for many years now. You know them all. It's blood pressure, it's cholesterol, it's glucose, it's sleep, it's healthy eating, it's physical activity. No surprises here. It's all the same 8 things or 9 things we talk often. And so they look at data from 2015 to 2020. So I have to have some data and look at the patterns of things on that data to kind of extrapolate what's going to happen in the future. So that's what they've done. So they're going to shows these graphs. I'm going to show you these graphs, and but just so you understand, it's based on the it's a combination of the understanding of what the trends are doing and what things are changing or have been changing. They feed that into the model, and then the model is able to kind of predict what likely would happen by 2050 to this population. And so they use examination. So there's these national health studies that have been doing surveys. They're using medical expenditure panel surveys. So like, what's the cost of healthcare stuff? Census data to account for population growth. So, there's a lot of mathematical and statistical adjustments here to try to approximate what the panel and the HA thinks is going to be what's likely going to happen to the population. So some of it is data driven, some of it is expert driven. So just kind of keep that in mind. But so let me show you what they find out. All right. So this is showing the health factors. Trying to get out of the light because it's line 8. So they're going to show us the proportion or the percent. This is the percent of people, I mean, specifically, this is women, okay? It's percent of women who have these health factors, and they're going to plot them across time. So 2020, 26, 29, 35, 2050. So it's a trend, it's a direction. It's like when they say, which way the storms are going, and you can see the trend on the map where they're going. So first of all, I want you to notice the fraction of women with these conditions in 2020. Let's take them by colors. There's diabetes. It's about 11 or 12% of the population of women have diabetes today. 2020, let's call it 2023, is today, okay? In the green is the hypertension. So nearly 50% of adult women have hypertension. It's what keeps me busy every day. Obesity, nearly 40% of women today have obesity. High cholesterol, nearly 40% of women have high cholesterol. And by the way, the men are not doing any better than this, okay? They just happen not to be on the wall today. But this is focused on the women. But there's no competition. That conversation is not today's conversation. There's no competition or comparison to men in here. But just so you know, the profile is not that much better for men. Now, what they expect is going to happen, and if you look here, the only line let's agree that all 4 of these things are no good for us, okay? So ideally, all 4 of these lines are plunging down, right? But they're not, and that's the first point to take today. The only one plunging down is this high cholesterol, and it does drop quite a bit. It's in the 40s, and it's going to be predictably down in the 20s, 20%. That's really good. Yay for the cholesterol. We can talk about why that is in a minute. But all the other 3 are going up. Diabetes is getting worse. Hypertension, if you could believe it, is going to get worse. And obesity is going to catch up above hypertension. It's going to land. We're going to be more obese than hypertensive in 2050. So this is a bit sobering. Okay. Why do we think the cholesterol is going to drop and the other ones are not? Anybody has any thought about that? Why do we think it would happen? Medications. Yeah. So statins, and now we have 4 new classes of medications. So it's going to be an explosion of new medicines in the last 5 or 7 years. And they are more coming. There's more and more in the pipeline. So we expect, in fact, there's some people are starting to even predict that in 10 years, we theoretically can wipe out high cholesterol as a factor. This doesn't say we're going to wipe that out. It just says we're going to go from 40% to 20%. So this has been a little bit more conservative on that prediction. But it is theoretically possible because the medicines are that good. Yes.
There's medication for hypertension also.
Absolutely. Thank you. I did not pay her $20 to say that, just so you know. But that is exactly the point. We've had medicines for 30 years for hypertension, and it's keeping getting up. So what this allows us to do is starting to focus on the priorities. Like, what is it that we ought to be working some more about? Well, we're kind of on the race, and we're in the way of winning it with cholesterol. We're losing the race with the hypertension. And yes, we do have medicines for hypertension, and we're getting better at it. Some of the new stuff with hypertension is going to be what's called poly pills. Some of you are probably already taking poly pills. That means pills, a single pill that already has two medicines in it. Well, now we have a single pill that has three medicines in it. And there's even four medicines in a single pill. And I think they can put an aspirin and a cholesterol and like one or two blood pressure medicines all in a single pill now. So it's possible that in the future, you may be able to take care of two or three of these problems with a singular pill. And on the clinical trials, which most of them have been done outside of the United States, the condition, it's a lot, people are a lot more adherent to taking it. And so we think a lot of the benefit that we see on the people meeting their goals is because people do remember to take the pills. Most of us, a lot of times, don't reach our goals because of the adherence to the medicine. So adherence is a big component. So it's not because the medicine doesn't work. Or our bodies can't take it. It's because we just forget to take it. Yes.
Isn't that also true with obesity? Like there are a lot of drugs coming out now, and even pills.
Yeah. Stuff. Absolutely. There's a lot of new. It's a world-class rat race in the pharma business right now to who's going to win that one. And the reality is, all the major drug companies are going to have some variation of two or three drugs pretty soon. So that's good news for the consumer, the patient, and the doctor, because we'll have a lot of options on the table. Not every medicine is going to agree with every patient. There's side effects, there are unwanted effects from it. So we're still learning a lot from that. But this doesn't, and they know that. The people who sat down and made this prediction knows that very well. They still predicted that it's going to get worse. That's really, which is really interesting. I'm sorry, somebody.
Oh, I said, what about the kidney failure?
They did not include, yeah, that's a great one. It's usually not, there's a lot of more interest on that, but it is not included in here. Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have any data in kidney. Yes.
Is it, if they look at the data, the more age,
Yeah, so we're going there. We got a couple more slides.
well, you paid him the $20.
I did not pay him $20 either. All right, so let's behavior. So those are conditions. Let's look at the behaviors. Because remember, we've talked many times that behaviors are related to the conditions. So there's a good relationship between these, and we can expand on that in a second. So what conditions do they look? They look at poor diet as a condition. They look at physical activity, which is really physical inactivity, sleep, and then smoking. So it's not sufficient sleep and not enough physical activity. So it's a lot harder to see what's going to happen here, right? So here's smoking, which is out actually on the downward trend, but it's not going to disappear. It's not a plunging like we would expect. It's just a subtle, small amount. Smoking is going to still be among us unless we do more. So this is not fate, by the way. The reason to look at this is because it's in the future and we can still change this. This is kind of like the challenge if we do nothing else. This is what's going to happen if we don't do anything else. The pattern, if we continue what we're doing, is what this means. This is not fate in any form or shape. This is like, wake up and let's work on something. Otherwise, this may be what we end up with. And so it's kind of like, think about what we could end up with, which you can tell me whether you think is okay or not at the end of this. But pink is poor diet. It looks pretty flat to me. The green, the sleep, which again is not good sleep. These are all on the negative term. The not enough sleep, not enough physical activity, poor diet, and smoking. That's it's going up. The sleep in the green is going up. The purple poor diet is these get kind of fuzzy and hard to see. This is the purple, this is the blue. It's slightly going down. Again, it's physical inactivity. So it's slightly going down. It's kind of hard to see, but the point to this is they don't predict that our behaviors are going to change that much. That means I'm blowing. We're a true sample of our population. I got to figure out another way of doing this because it ain't working. Okay. So we're not changing very much our behaviors. So if we don't change our behaviors and we keep everything else, our conditions are going to increase. Any surprises about that? The behaviors are not going to change? You surely hear a lot about healthy stuff on the news, right? And on TV and on your phones and everything.
Especially with smoking.
Yeah.
Remember, this is, we're in California. So, I think
Yeah.
we've seen a change there, maybe in physical activity for California too. But I think.
This is national. This is definitely national.
Right. So
And it is very heterogeneous. Absolutely. Very different parts of the country. The behaviors and the effects are very different. So, hi, how are you? Good to see you too. Nice. Wow. Great. Awesome. Okay, so outcomes. Coronary disease is in the blue. So hopefully you can tell none of these are going down. That's the bad news. So it's a little higher for the blue coronary. It's a little higher on the purple, atrial fibrillation. On the green is going to be heart failure. And then on the yellow is going to be stroke. Stroke is jumping big time. Okay. So stroke is probably the ones that are going to get worse. And stroke on women is actually much more severe than it is on men. So keep that in mind. It really is sobering that the prediction is not very good. I promise to pick you up at the end. I'm not going to leave you depressed with this. There is a hopeful last slide. This is breaking it up a little further. So these are the behaviors: poor diet, inadequate physical activity. Now they're labeled properly: inadequate sleep and smoking. This is based on race, self-described race. So in the salmon colors are white, and the gold color is black, and the green is Hispanic, and the blue is multiple plus Alaskan and Native Americans, and then on the purple is Asian. So focus on the little arrows, because that's really the important thing. So these arrows are telling the trend. So between now and 2050, the trend is a downward trend for poor diet. So we're going to try. But since the arrow doesn't get very far from where we are today, which is where the bar is, we're not going to succeed. That's what that means. Now, contrast that to physical activity. This is where we are right now on the top of the bar. The trend is down, meaning there's going to be more physical activity. And the distance of the arrow means that we're actually going to improve. Like, people are going to improve in their physical activity. So we're making good progress in physical activity. Okay. Sleep, the trend is that it's going to get worse. And it doesn't really tell us where it's going to land, because they probably don't know where it's going to land. They just know the behavior is going to get worse. And then smoking, they believe the percents of smoking are going to go down as well. Smoking is, and this is another way of looking at what was on those graphs, which is so hard to see. But they predict it's going to happen across all race groups, which is good. But again, you once again see the smoking is going to go down, inactivity is going to go down. But I didn't show you any medical condition getting better. Remember that. Some behaviors are going to improve. We're still going to have problems. And it's true across age. So this is the age graph. Same concept. Physical activity is very interesting. This is the younger, the 20 to 44. This is the 80 plus. And so the percent of physical inactivity when you're 80 is much higher than when you were younger. We know that. That's the difference of age right there in physical inactivity. It's the message is getting across in all the groups, perhaps a little bit more for the 80 plus. They're getting the point that maybe we need to stay more active. So in that group, the expectation is that there's going to be more physical activity, and that's actually success. We're getting the message out. More people are coming to programs like this and getting active and whatnot. Again, across age, we're making no progress in sleep. Younger people are having less smoking, is what they're saying here. Over here, if you're 80 and you're smoking, we're probably not going to make a lot of progress there. That's what that means. Some hope in the younger, not much hope in the older crowd once you're smoking. And then poor diet, we're stuck. Doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter what race you are. We're making no progress in our diet. Now, some of you have heard me say this before. You can exercise and you can eat healthy. Which one wins if you had to compete them against each other? Which one is going to win?
Healthy.
Exercise. Which one you said?
I said, "Nine."
Diet? I'm taking a poll. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing.
Diet,
Diet.
all you want.
Yeah, diet. Anybody else want to vote?
Diet
Diet. Who said that?
Over Zoom.
online.
I agree. Online. Yes, thank you. So, I have two ways of saying this. So one is 8 years I've been doing cardiac rehabilitation. Every year I have a marathon runner or a triathlon or somebody who gets a heart attack, and it runs in our program. And it's, in fact, we get a half a dozen of them a year. I have yet to see a single true whole food vegetarian have a single heart attack in our 8 years. I'm looking for them. Had 1,000 patients go through our program in the last 5 years. I have yet to find a single one that truly lives a whole food plant-based eating. It just really, you cannot outrun your poor diet. You can recover a lot by adjusting the diet. You do need the exercise. The best signal to your body for resilience and recovery and health is you eat healthy and then you stimulate your body with exercise. And then your body knows what to do with the healthy food you ate, and it remodels and it puts away the fat, it strengthens the bones, making the brain connections to the muscle. There's so many things exercise will do. But exercise cannot carry the whole equation. If you don't have the healthy eating, exercise will fall short. And there it is. It's right here in this data. You can exercise better, but if you don't change the diet, what's going to happen? I showed you in the last graph, the disease will continue to progress. So my anecdotal story is being supported by the graphs from these forecasts and prediction. So that's what I want you to start thinking about. What's the good news here is we actually understand a lot about this. This cannot be surprising or stunning to us. We actually know the action plan. And the action plan is what I just described. Got to sleep a little better, figure out how to sleep 7 to 9 hours. And if you're not there, talk it over with your doctor, figure it out. There's sleep hygiene and then maybe sleep conditions, and obstructive conditions, all kinds of reasons why that could be intervened, but your sleep should be restful and 7 to 9 hours. If it's 12 hours, talk to your doctor. That's probably not the best thing for you either. So it's not just the lack of sleep, but it's the too much sleep as well. So we know the formula to change this is somehow the population in the United States as a population, they predict, hasn't figured out the riddle. But we do know the riddle. We do know the factors and the things we need to do. And this program actually promotes all of them. So you are lucky in the sense that having this exposure here, you more than maybe many others have access to this information in how to handle this. So in other words, this is not fate, and it does not have to be this way. So do I have any data to support what I just said? And the answer, and this is my upbeat slide, the answer is yes. And you have seen this. I've shown this years in the past. So this is a study. This is from 2020. It was it's a multiplicity of studies that got put together. And they wanted to examine how the interaction or the relationship of healthy lifestyles to life expectancy. And this is what every study does, mortality, survival, or whatnot. But this is interesting because they added an extra level to this. They wanted to know what was not just what extends your life in terms of years, but what was the fraction of your years where you didn't have chronic diseases? So it's kind of a living without diseases and chronic diseases. That's what most of us want. Stay healthy, don't have to deal with, in this case, cancer, cardiovascular disease, and diabetes. They use these three as the representation of chronic disease, okay? So they wanted to kind of figure out what was the relationship of the healthy lifestyle to people. And these are populations, this is tens of thousands of people review over 20 and 30 years of lifespan kind of studies. These are not intervention studies. This is not about individual patients, just so you know. And so that was kind of the setup of the study. And so, oh, I brought my Spanish version of the slide, but the data is still the same. So don't worry. You too can learn heritage Spanish with me today. So the factors are fuman, which is smoking, or no fuman, which is not smoking. So these are the healthy. Salud means health. This is the healthy factors. So if you have, and so they're going to quantitate the number of factors. This is no factors, one factor, two factors, three factors. So if you have 4 or 5 factors, these are the factors. That means you will be having the healthiest lifestyle. That's what the graph means. The factors are no fumar, actividades físicas, which means physical activity, dieta de calidad, which means quality, a healthy or a quality diet, alcohol, beber alcohol, moderado. So this refers to this idea that you can have a drink a day, somehow you're okay. I don't believe it, but that's what the data they have. And then the other one is mantener un peso normal, which is keeping your weight at a normal. And for this, they use a BMI of 25. There's probably only a half a dozen people in America that still have a BMI of 25. Half of them are probably in the room. So, I mean, really, this is already so way outdated. This data is from decades ago. But these are the factors. So if you have 4 or 5 of these, you're considered the healthiest lifestyle. If you have none, you're considered the unhealthy. So again, the height of the bar. So this is the life expectancy at age 50. So they looked at everyone at age 50 who didn't have the 3 conditions. So everyone at age 50 was healthy. And then they quantitated the factors and they just saw what happened to you 30 years later. This is how old the study is. Okay. And these are the actual data. So if you have none, this is your life expectancy. This is for the hombres. So this is the men. This is the women up here. But the patterns are the same. And so if you look at the top of the bar, it goes up. So it's about an 8-year difference. So you gain about 8 years of life, total life, if you live a healthy lifestyle based on those parameters. Now, the yellow and the purple represents the last few years you spend with the conditions. So this is the actual dead or alive question, and this is the time alive with diagnosis of diabetes, cancer, or heart disease. And so it's kind of hard to see, but in the women, that gets smaller. But not only the women live longer, but they spend more years. The yellow becomes higher. That's what that line is going to show. So they live longer, if you look at the top of the yellow, without the conditions, which is good news, because that's what most patients in the room tell me they want to do. They want to keep stay well, we do things, come and go, not have to be slowed down by disease, right? That's the top of the yellow. It's true in the men, not as strong. So this line is not as steep. This is a steeper line than this one. And because the pattern is the same. If you notice carefully, this purple here got a little bigger than that. So the men don't live as much, and they spend a little bit more time with chronic diseases than the women, based on their behaviors. So again, this is the data to support the lifestyle, the behaviors that lead you to not smoke, to be physically active all the way into your 80s or 90s, qualitative diet. Again, my take is skip the drink at least 362 days of the year, skip the drink, 3 times a year is not bad. And then try to keep the best you can a healthy weight. And that is the formula to try to maximize the long life that you can have with the least amount of chronic disease. So I am optimistic that if I can give this talk about 10 billion times more and can get 10 billion more audiences like you, we may be able to change those curves in the prediction from the American Heart Association. The important thing with those predictions is we kind of need to know where we're going to make choices in the present that could favor beating the forecast in the future. And with that, I'll end my remarks and open for question and answer, whatever you guys you want to talk about. You can stop the slides.
So is there any trend to start educating the younger people? I'm talking children. Because if we can get them in a healthy lifestyle at an earlier age, then by the time they're 20, they're not having to struggle with the.
I did not pay her $40 to ask that question, but that's exactly the reason. That's right. You got 40. That's the real good one. That's the reason I'm starting to do college, teaching at the college. You got the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why. That's my vision, that educating our young people at the college, at the high school, all the way down to Head Start. But
Yeah.
who knows whether we'll have those resources, but
Yeah.
at least, hopefully we still have colleges in the next decade or two. But educating the younger people to recognize that it doesn't have to be like the way it was for your parents and grandparents, that it could be different, and that we know enough to make it different, and try to have them invest on them. Because I can only help a 70 and 80-year-old most of the time, one at a time. And I do that, and I like that, and I enjoy that, and I'm very rewarded by what I do. But I recognize there's just so little I can do for a population when that's all I do.
Right.
So teaching, and it's kind of fits to the mission of what Linda does here, and what this program tries to do, is to involve our young students in activities and learning about these, is the way that we get to that, to kind of, if we think in 2050 is going to be better, we better hurry up and start teaching a lot of young people
Yeah, that's right.
about these things, so we can be better then. Yes.
It's kind of a political question thing.
This is allowed, and I've got in trouble with this before. That's okay.
What is going on with Mom?
With what?
Mom.
Maha, yes. Yeah. That's right. My confused 13-year-old child. Maha. Yeah. Good instincts, maybe some good intentions, really bad information, but yeah, that's what Maha is happening with Maha. Maha is a very interesting movement,
But
because
it is having an impact.
yeah,
And
it's a loud 13-year-old. It can really change the tone of the family. That's right. Yeah, it's because it's not a long established movement that is well vetted on good sound information. And I'm not saying that everything they say or stand for is not sound. There's actually a lot of very interesting sound stuff that they're touching, but it is still framed in a bit of not enough science and well-established facts that makes some of what they propose and try to do a bit kind of questionable at the least, and really wacky at the worst. But it comes from a good place, I think. It comes from an instinct and a desire to focus on things. I mean, I am telling you here the evidence we know for the cardiovascular conditions and physical and health and nutrition and others, which are all lifestyles. So there are very good knowledge out there on lifestyles that are very helpful. And one of the concepts that they get not correct all the time is whether it's one or the other. And we tried the one or the other for decades and decades. For decades and decades, hypertension, let's take that one example. The recommendation was, do the lifestyle first, come back in 6 months or a year and check your blood pressure again, and then we'll decide whether you need a medicine after you try the lifestyle. How successful has that been? I just show you how it's only getting worse, right? It's not, period. So for the first time, the American Heart Association just put out their recommendation the last 6 months for hypertension. For the first time, they said, do both. You don't wait. You have any risk, any concern, any whatever, you just start with both. Don't just stagger, do parallel. And that's what they're hoping is going to improve. It's got that when you show up and your blood pressure is high, I'm starting you on a medicine while you're deciding what you're going to do with your diet and your exercise, which could take you 6 years. If you come to a program like this and you listen to me every month, it take you 5-6 years before you make enough changes. We're not going to lose those on healthy blood pressure. I'm going to give you the medicine. And so what that's doing, and I'm doing this in the rehab program, and what that does is really ends up you give medicines to people up front, you get the number down, and as they improve their lifestyle and the numbers keep coming down, we take the medicine away. And we haven't done very well on getting that message out to people that it is okay to take the medicine away. It is, I as a doctor will be happy to deprescribe if your numbers get better. And so, yes, you're not committed to these medicines for life if we can deprescribe. That's for hypertension. That is not true in heart failure. I want to make sure that I don't, especially since I know I'm in Zoom and somebody's going to one day go click, click, you said, I want to make sure that the disclaimer is there. There are conditions by what that is not true, because even after you get better from the heart failure, the medicines are needed to keep you in the better state. Because if we take the medicine away, then your heart will then go back in the path of degeneration. So we want to maintain you healthy. It's not just to get the number right, but also to maintain you in the healthy state. So I'm talking about just when you just have pure hypertension, if you can do enough lifestyle to get the number, guess what? You don't have hypertension anymore. So for just hypertension, you don't need the medicine. But you may be taking, and this is very common, you may be taking a hypertension medicine for other reasons. And so it's clear, it's important to ask, am I taking that for my atrial fib, for my heart failure, or my, whatever else, or am I taking that just for hypertension? Before you ask to be deprescribed. Yes.
What's the actual definition of heart failure? I mean, when I hear heart
Yeah.
failure, I'm thinking somebody died,
Yeah.
But that's not the case.
No, absolutely no. I'll give you a definition. Before I do that, because I can go on for 20 minutes on that. What is your question?
One of the variables that doesn't seem to be mentioned is the value of community.
Yes, okay.
Being able to sustain
Right.
any of those things, whether it's maintaining the lifestyle, or taking the drugs, doing the
Yep.
exercise. And that's why this program seems to be more successful in keeping people going.
Yep.
Community.
Totally agree. And there's data for that. So I'll go back to that. Heart failure. So heart failure is a very complicated syndrome. It's not a disease. So just no nuances on the words, I get it. But a disease usually implicates that it's a single condition with a main cause and a main problem to which you then take a main medicine that makes it better. A syndrome means it's like a group of many diseases that somehow have some similarity to each other to lump them up in the word syndrome, but they're not a single thing. And that's what heart failure is. This is why heart failure is so hard to pinpoint and explain and whatnot. But there's probably the most singular definition that I can use for heart failure is your inability to do functionally things that you're used to or were able to do because your heart in some way is not performing. So, and usually that's breathlessness or fatigue. That's the two most common. So if you're breathless or fatigued because your heart, if in some way not working correctly, then that's heart failure. Now, the some ways where all the different variations are, it could be a rhythm thing, it could be a muscle thing, it could be a valve thing, it could be the many different things that leads you to be with the symptom of the breathlessness or fatigue. Now, the next layer to that is then we look for what's called congestion. So when you're breathless or fatigued because of heart failure, the body usually is retaining fluid. It's a pump issue and it's a fluid retention issue. So then we look for swelling on the legs, we look for fluid on the lungs, so we examine your neck to look for the veins. And all of that is the physical evidence that your body's retaining some extra fluid. And so when you have congestion and the symptoms, now you have congestive heart failure. But those three words together don't say anything about the condition, the reason, the underlying reason why you have the heart failure. And there are many different, and this is why when you talk to others, it's really hard to find a pattern. And we train for 3 years just to try to understand all these patterns and try to figure out what the appropriate treatments will be for the different patterns. Community is very important. There's a social level of that component, and then there is a more biological level of that component. And so one of the biological components of that is the effect in the mind, the effect of the mind to the cardiac, is the brain cardiac connection. And the connections there are things like depression and loneliness, which are emotions and are related to mental health and social conditions with emotional and mental health components. And all of that feeds into a cardiovascular effect. So the way to benefit the cardiovascular effect is you work on the depression, the loneliness, and the other social components that go with that, where community living and interacting has been shown to help with all of those things. So the counter of loneliness is interventions or activities within the context of community. And community could be physical, could be, doesn't have to be physical. You don't have to be in the same room to still have community. You all remember those phones that we used to dial call people, and that used to work really well. So now we use the phone for this, which can be questionable whether it works so well or not. But when you used to use the phone to talk to people, that used to work really well for keeping and maintaining community. So, but yeah, but very important point. Thank you for bringing that up.
I have
Yes.
two questions. One is a yes or no. Is it any
Yes.
easier for you to get the research information that you need since it was about 6 months ago? I think we talked about it and you were
No.
blocked.
Yeah. So the challenge with research is many, but currently funding is one of them, and access to data and effort is limited when you don't have any funds. And so we've lost grants. We're still struggling to figure out grants. So we have a heart failure preserved ejection fraction grant at UC Davis. We're on the 5th year of the grant. It's a national consortium. There's 7 institutions. In fact, one of the meetings I was just on Monday, Tuesday of this week, I was in Washington, D.C. in the meeting for that. We are probably one of the most advanced networks within the NIH right now in building these collaborative, large, integrated data sets that are available all over the world, where this program is going to likely become the model, one of the models for the NIH. And we're very proud to be part of that. The NIH hasn't put the call yet out to provide us the next 5 years funds. So everybody was just talking about what are we going to do? Are we firing everyone in July 1st of this year when the money runs out? And it was April 28th when we're having that conversation. And the answer is the NIH people in the room were telling us we have no idea what the people upstairs are doing. So there's no yet a permission. They got all the paperwork in to put out but call. So all of us can write a proposal. So all of us get funded again for 5 more years. And they are the staff that faces us say, we put the paperwork a year ago and we have never got an answer. So until the person upstairs approves it, we can never put an announcement for you to write anything. So we're basically starting to say to people, there's no money after July 1st. And so this is the downside of research. It takes you a year or 2 to ramp up. So if you got to let go everyone who you just ramp up and train for 5 years, it's going to take us another year or 2 to ramp up with. So let's say they come about it in August, September, October, then we get the money next year. Then we have to hire everyone else to ramp up. It's just 2 years, 3 years lost. And we should be mad about it.
I am. I protest
Damn it,
on
we
the
should be
corner.
mad about it, because you know who's gonna get the downside of that? You and me. Because we are the people who are not gonna get the information to treat better heart failure in the future. So we're just delaying the program will deliver. The program is in a good pace, amazing work, incredible science to deliver results. But we are every year of delay that we get with this stuff, of the funding and the this and the that, is a year more or 2 more years later that we're going to see the actual results. So the forecast is we're going to yield the product. We're going to come up with new drugs, new treatments for this. The when we're going to get it is being currently delayed by the delays in the process. So that's why we should be mad at the delay.
Yeah, part of the guy that's promoting measles. Is he?
The measles promoting dude. Yeah, no, that's vaccines. That's
Yeah,
vaccine
yeah,
and
yeah.
concern.
Anyway, the other one is a personal question. I injured my knee,
Mm.
okay, and it's taken a while to get it better because it got a big hematoma in it.
Mm.
Okay, so why does it make me so tired, the healing process?
Oh, the reason you're getting tired is you're losing your muscle mass. See, you were using every part of your body, walking around, doing stuff. The moment you sit in that chair, in a matter of days, you're losing the muscle mass. And the body, especially as we get older, we get in our 7th and 8th decade, just a little bit of muscle mass just feels like a hammer over your shoulder. She's like, I'll
Well,
do it, I can't get up.
can I build it up again?
You can, you gotta, so you gotta make sure you don't injure yourself, but you can use, so if the knee's the problem, you can just start with your arms. And you can try to keep up with the arms, whatever other part of your body that can still do some, you should try to keep that up as maximal as you can. That will counter some. And it'll definitely put you in a better position than if you don't. But you won't feel a lot different until you're able to get back upright and walking. That's gonna be really instrumental for you. But yeah, it's usually the muscle mass that you lose, which is, you've ever seen the astronauts when they come off from the space, in space, and 4 people have to carry them, they're like this. Like this, and they have to be carried.
Yeah, no.
Well,
I
the
didn't
reason
know.
for that is they lost all the muscle mass. They lost it all up there because they're weightless, so they have no load in their body. That's what I mean. You gotta get up and walk. Their bones and your muscles are loaded against gravity. That's how you maintain the muscle mass. And then you get on a machine and then you get more muscle mass. But if you already lost the ability to be able to be upright and walking, then the body's losing muscle mass. And that all translates as feeling tired, fatigued, and whatnot.
I didn't even need a nap before all this.
Yeah.
Now I'm taking 3 a day.
So we got to work on the physical, trying to keep active the other parts of you. So, hope that helps.
Dr.
Any other questions?
Lopez,
Yes,
I have a question. I'm out here on Zoom,
it's okay. We forgive you.
wondering which countries are the healthiest in terms of the stress and heart. And of course that would relate to the charts that we looked at, diet, smoking, all, exercise. But is there I'm sure there's data on
Maybe
that.
the
I think I've
Swedes.
seen
I
it.
think it's the Swedes, maybe. Probably because they're very good at telling us everything about them.
Who is it? I missed that.
The Swedes. Sweden? Right, Sweden. Yeah. They have national health system and they have national data that keeps track of everything healthy they do and all the good and bad outcomes they have. And so we actually know a lot about the Swedes. We know things that are incredible, like we know down to the hour of the most common time of the day where they have heart attacks, because they will document the hour in which everyone has a heart attack. So they have national data on the hour of the heart attacks they're going to have. And you would never guess what that day and time is. This is published. I'm not making this up. Somebody actually looked at the times of the day in a year when people have heart attacks. And they thought it was the soccer games, but it wasn't. Anybody else can guess?
Full moon?
Full moons, holidays? Yeah, which one? Christmas. What time? 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night on Christmas night. So they don't know whether it's all the food you ate or it's because you're arguing with all your relatives. They don't know the mechanism of this, but they know that the actual time of the actual holiday when they get most of the they even look at the World Cup days to see if the World Cup did it or not, because people are really on the World Cup, excited. So we know a lot about their health, and they do have they have a very physically active lifestyle. And so they show, and they some of the good population data about the amount of exercise that people do and how good that is comes from the Swedes. And so I'm just biased to say it's them because we know a lot about them. So.
And isn't Sweden, how do I say this? It's just a calmer environment, maybe economically, politically.
Probably, yeah. It's a lot more. So their social needs are provided better by the government
Right.
than many other places. Yeah, I would probably say that, and I claim no expertise on the Swedes. But I would probably agree with that, something like that. Yeah, they definitely have a national health system, so people don't have to struggle and scramble to access care, which is
That-
unfortunate
that-
in this
The
country. but
mental and emotional,
Yeah.
I believe, really plays into all this a lot. And I will refrain from getting political, so I should stop here probably.
We do not want to offend the host, so. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to separate at some point, the social, separate ourselves. So separating, maybe the better word is buffering ourselves from the social political stressors. And so so there are two ways of doing that, in my opinion. These are the only two political advices I give in my clinic to patients. There are only two political advices I give to patients in the clinic. One is make sure your vote counts. And the other one is make sure you turn off the news. Because sometimes that's the only thing you can do. You may not be able to change what's on the TV, then turn off the TV. Because if it's making you anxious and upset and whatnot, then that is making your, for sure, is making your blood pressure higher. For sure, is making your sugar higher. For sure, you're not sleeping as good. And I just told you that all those things are important for your health. So that's why it's my business at that moment to say that. Not the political side of it, but the reason is if it's affecting your mental health with like stress and anxiety, then it is affecting your cardiovascular. And then I get something to say about
I have an awesome psychiatrist and he tells that to all of his patients.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I
Excellent.
agree. And I think many of us learn that when we're very young, depending on the kind of the household environment we grew up in.
Yeah, we have to be careful though, because from an educational point of view, if we detach too much, we lose sense of what's really happening. And who's going to teach the younger people the direction and the guidance of where to go? So it's hard to say turn everything off and stay disconnected all the time. But you have to watch the news 4 times a day? Probably not. Maybe you can watch them every other day, or every 3 days and get yourself a little respite, from it. So I'm not saying disconnect and become a hermit and, go and build a little colony in the backyard of your house and never talk to anyone else. But that feeds into loneliness. And we already talked about how loneliness and community is important. So, but dose it down the exposure to the social political tensions because they do wear out. They do, we're all humans. It wears at different rates, but it wear all of us out at some point.
Right.
All
Thank
right.
you so
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the questions as usually. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Doctor.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll have some students in this meeting. Yes.
That is,